Hello everybody and welcome back. In this video, we'll begin the process of actually implementing the business logic inside of our chats page. Our focus is going to be towards actually laying out the foundation of how our business logic is going to interact with our chats page, and as well as kind of understanding how the data flow is going to function. So with that said, let's get into it and let's see how we're going to be tackling this. So the first thing that I'd like to point out is, like, similar to how we've been using the provider package and been using the authentication provider and using the provider.auth call to actually grab the instance of the authentication provider within our widget tree, we're going to be working with a very similar concept to that in this video as well. For our chats page, since it has some kind of complex functionality associated with it, I'm going to be kind of like decoupling the business logic from the chats page's actual UI logic as well. And I'll have a separate file which is going to be responsible for kind of managing the state of our chats page and kind of giving us the information that we require to render our UI. And the way it's going to happen is that I'm going to create a new provider, and this provider is going to be just specifically tailored towards providing information to our chats page, as well as kind of handling any input that our chats page might give to it. And then based upon that input, kind of doing some operations, and then after that, notifying our chats page that it should re-render itself. So it might be a bit confusing right now, but once we get into the implementation details, it'll become a bit more clearer. So the first thing that I'm going to do is that I'm going to go to my providers folder, and inside of here, I'll create a new file, and I'm going to call this chats_page_provider.dart. With this done, I'll open the file up. With the file I created, the first thing that I'm going to be doing is that I'm going to be importing the async Dart module. And with this, what I'm going to do is that I'm going to add a import comment, and I'm going to import our first package, which is going to be our material package. With that done, the next thing I'm going to do is that I'm going to import the getIt package, and I'm also going to import our cloud Firestore package. So let me import that real quick. I don't know why I did Cupertino, but it's just cloud Firestore. With this done, what I'm going to do is that I'll add the semicolons at the end, and I'll move forwards to now importing the services that we require. The only service we require in this case is going to be our database service, since we are going to be actually fetching some information from our Firestore database, and we need our database service for that. So I'll do // then go to my services folder, and then take the database service from there. With this, we'll also require access to our providers, the same provider that we've been using before, and the provider that we need access to is our authentication provider. So I'm going to do // providers authentication provider. And finally, we'll require access to some models as well. The models we'll require access to is first all of the model files that we've created. So it'll be models chat, then it'll be // models, and then it'll be our chat message model. And with this, we'll also have our chat user model imported as well, to / models, and then chat user model. Now that we have all of the necessary import statements done, the next thing that I'm going to do is that I am going to create a class, which is going to be a chat page provider class. And what this class is going to do is that it's going to extend our change notifier. And as I mentioned to you guys in the videos before, a change notifier is just a class that kind of allows us the functionality to listen to it and react to changes that happen to it. And it has abilities to actually let listeners that are listening to it know the data within itself has changed. So that's basically what a change notifier is. We require a reference to our authentication provider, hence I'm going to create a variable inside of the class called authentication provider, and I'll call it _auth. With this, I'll also define another variable. I'll call it late database service, and I'll call this _db. And then with this, I am getting an error for our authentication variable, and that's because we are not assigning anything to it and it's not been marked late, and we'll fix that later. The next thing I'm going to do is that I'll say that we'll have a list of chats that are stored within this, and this will be an optional list, which means that it might be null, so there might be no chats in it. And with this, I'm also going to create a late stream subscription, and a stream subscription is just a variable that allows us to hold the reference to a stream, and we can listen to it and perform operations on that stream. And I'll call this chats and then stream. And how we use this chat stream will become apparent later as well. Now with all of the properties defined for our class, the next thing that I'm going to do is that I'm going to create the constructor for my class, and I'm going to call this chat page provider. And this constructor is going to take one required argument, and that is going to be our authentication provider passed into it. So I'm going to say this._auth, and then the authentication provider is going to be saved inside of this auth variable. With this, I'll open up the curly brackets, and inside of the actual constructor, I'll say that to get the DB, what we're going to do is that we're going to set the _DB variable equal to getIt.instance, and as you might have guessed, get, and then inside of here, I'm going to firstly define the type of service that I'm going to get, which is the database service, then call the parentheses and call it a date. And with this, I'll do command save. The next thing that I'm going to be doing is that I'm going to be adding a function to our actual chat notifier or our chat page provider, and that is going to be the dispose function. And what dispose will do for us is that once this actual chat page provider is no longer readed and is being disposed of, which Flutter automatically does, it'll dispose some stuff that we had actually created as well. And the thing that we'd like to dispose is going to be our chat stream. So I'm going to do chat stream.dispose. And it doesn't have dispose, I think it's called cancel. Yeah, chat stream, so cancel. So what I'll just say that, hey, when the chat page provider is destroyed, I want you to destroy the chat stream as well and stop listening to the stream that we were listening to, and do command save. And why we're using a stream will become apparent once we actually implement the logic of getting the chats. So now with this done, the next thing that I'm going to do is that I'm going to create a function. I'm going to call this a function that returns void. It's called getChats, and it's an asynchronous function. And then inside of here, I'll just open the function definition and don't do anything in it for now. And the final thing that I'm going to do is that I'm going to say that when our chat page provider gets initialized, once we have the reference to our database, I'm going to call the getChats function. And that's pretty much it. Do command save. So now that our kind of bare bones structure for our chat page provider has been laid out, I am going to firstly close the custom list view tile because we don't need it. I'm going to go back to my chats page, and I'm going to be now kind of integrating the chats page provider into our chats page. So to do that, the first thing that we're going to do is that we're going to make sure that we have the provider package imported. Now with the provider package imported, I'm going to go down to where I have my chats page state class, and here I'm going to be adding a new provider. I'm going to call it a late chats page provider. So that brings up the question that we need to import it. So I'll go to the top to where I'm importing my providers, and I'm going to do import / providers, and then my chats page provider. Come down and then create the variable now, saying that it's going to be of type chat page provider. And then I, for some reason, do not know why it's giving me an error. Oh yeah, it needs to be chats page provider. And then I need to update the actual constructor to be chats page provider as well. Command save. Take this, go back and say it's going to be chat page provider, but it's still not doing anything. Why is the reason for that? So if I go here and I say chats, now it does it, chats page provider, and I'll call this _page provider and add a semicolon, and that's pretty much it, and do command save. So now that we have a variable that can hold a reference to our page provider, the next thing that we have to do is that we need to assign a value to our page provider. So to do that, I'm going to go to my build function, and inside of my build function, I'm going to remove the call to our build UI function. And what I'm going to say is that we are going to add a multi-provider here. And the multi-provider, first of all, as we know, takes in a list of providers, but it also requires a child as well. The child is now going to be our actual build UI function. So I'm going to set the child to be build UI. So essentially we're just wrapping the build UI function call within a multi-provider. And inside of this multi-provider, I'm going to create my new change notifier provider, which is going to be of type chat page provider. So I'm going to say that I'm going to create a new provider of type change notifier provider. It's change, not chat, sorry, chat notifier provider. And then what I'm going to say that it's going to have a chat provider type, which is going to be chat page provider. And then what I'm going to do that in the create function, I'll say that we are going to ignore whatever gets passed into us. I'll use an arrow function, and I'm going to return an instance of our chats page provider, and I'm going to pass in the auth variable to it. I'm going to add the commas at the end and do Alt-Shift-F command save. And you might ask where we're getting this auth variable from. Well, as you can see, we actually defined a auth variable here, and then we use our provider package to actually get the authentication provider from our widget tree and save a reference to it within our auth variable, and that's what we pass to our chats page provider as well. So now anything that's underneath of this multi-provider should have access to not only our authentication provider but also our chats page provider as well. And since the only thing that's underneath of this multi-provider is the UI that's associated with our chats page, hence we can confidently say that our chats page should have access to our chats page provider. So the last thing that we need to do is that we need to go to our build UI function, and we need to access our page provider and then set the variable underscore page provider to it. So to do that, I'm going to go to my build UI function, and I'm going to take the container widget, and I'm just going to kind of copy it. And the reason I copy usually and remove stuff and don't use any keyboard shortcuts is, one, that I don't want to confuse you with what's going on, so I usually explicitly show you that I'm removing some stuff, I'm adding it, and I'm re-adding stuff back. But there are shortcuts to doing these things as well if you want to do. But now that you have a build UI function emptied out, the next thing that we're going to do is that we're going to return a builder function. And the builder function we're using that is because the builder function has a builder property that has a function that kind of describes how the builder is going to build out its widget tree. And inside of here, what we'll say is that the builder function takes in a build context, and we need this context for our provider package to actually get access to our chat page provider. So that's why I'm wrapping everything within a builder function. And then what I'm going to do is that I'm going to open up the curly brackets. I'll add a semicolon here, and then inside of here, what I'll say that we can return what we were previously returning, which is our container with everything. I'll add a comma here just for reformatting purposes and do Alt-Shift-F command save. And now the final thing that I'm going to do is that inside of our builder function, I'm going to say that before we return the container, we're going to set the page provider equal to our context, and then dot watch. And then what are we going to be watching? We're going to be watching our chats page provider, and then kind of adding a semicolon or the parentheses at the end, and then a semicolon to command save. And now what this is going to do is that our page provider is going to watch our chat page provider, and every time something happens within our chat page providers that kind of like triggers the information to kind of like let the widgets that are listening to it know that they need to re-render themselves, then this widget tree is going to re-render, and we'll see how that works as well. So with that, we've successfully integrated our chats page provider with our chats page, and we kind of have the business logic decoupled from the UI logic. So since this video has been fairly long, I'm going to end this video here, and I'll see you guys in the next video where we'll begin the process of actually adding the database service function that we require to actually get chats from our chat database. So with that, thank you for watching. I'll catch you guys in the next video. Thanks again.